Hey everybody, this is Perch, and it's I guess it's time to check in on how that whole image union thing is going. The image union that I think was it's about time, and this will revolutionize comics and ensure fair and equitable pay for everyone. Was how it was billed. So how is it going? Well, Sasha E. Head, who is listed as a real human being, comics and video games designer and producer with the Manifold Garden team, and graphic designer of 3W3M. Sasha Head, yes, her. She basically came in to let us know this, that apparently Jim Valentino specifically removed the unionizing members of the Image Comics staff from the Shadowline book Hellcop office credits. Sasha says, it may be fully his right, but I still think it's cruel, perhaps reveals a little bit about something of the old boy culture of comics. I'm not sure what old boy, I'm not sure what the boy aspect of it is. Respect pronouns. Come on, Sasha. And then, Sasha notes, just to be clear, other folks published in Image do not have the option to do this. This is an action made by a founder of the company specifically as a dig to his own employees. Honestly, have so much more to say about this, but it's hard for me to talk about it without devolving into my own feelings and getting overly emotional. But them's the facts. Image staff wants to unionize, and the founder of the company retaliated. Take it how you want. Okay. So, and then there's a lot of discussion. A bunch of people came in to say, well, this is the same team of people that wanted to, basically approve or deny concepts at Image. And Sasha notes there are more details, but it would be good to have more details because aspects of this story, it's not that they don't make sense. It's that it screams there's another side, or at least there's some more information that needs to come out here that we're not getting initially, because on its face this seems odd. So let's peel it back a little bit. The Image Union basically got its start via an announcement on Twitter, and like I said in the video at the time, this was all but guaranteed to backfire and not help the team actually accomplish what it set out to do. At the time, I speculated that maybe this Image Union really didn't have any, really wasn't committed to the bit, really didn't want to do a union, and was more interested in a Twitter stunt for mysterious reasons, popularity. Who knows why they decided to go this route. I've talked to some of the Image Union members directly, and I've talked to some of the management at Image. And what I've learned is, number one, the people who were trying to found the Image Union were not trying to. It wasn't a stunt. It wasn't a hey, we don't really think this is serious. They actually believed that this was the right way to go about it, that this was what was the way to do it. I think anyone who's formed a union, who's engaged in these kind of things, will tell you that having your very first volley on Twitter or Facebook or any social media platform, as opposed to, say, talking to the management and the founders about your intentions first, would be a dumb move. It would basically start the entire process off on an adversarial foot, which it did. Talking to, again, some of Image management directly, no, I cannot say who, they were surprised. They learned about this via trending Twitter, via trending on Twitter. They learned about it by people contacting them saying, would you like to comment on the tweets? And, whether maybe it goes out saying Eric Stevenson or some people got some kind of heads up, but at least the people I spoke to, which were, I would say, reasonably high-placed, one very high-placed person, was surprised by it. And surprised by it would be a dumb move. Now, talking to one of the people who was trying to get the Image Union going, there's at least, I think, a belief or a strategy that going public with it would generate a groundswell of support and make it harder for the company to reject it. However, This is a lesson in that I think a lot of people are slowly learning, although very slowly at times, that it turns out that even thousands and thousands of likes and retweets and hell yeahs and it's about time and stick it to the mans on Twitter don't actually mean much if you just ignore it, which is, for all intents and purposes, what Image seemed to do. They did issue some statements because ultimately their hand were forced and they had to, but their statement was basically, yeah, we'll look into this and we'll evaluate it and we'll get back to you. And nothing really occurred. Since that time, the Image Union group has eroded somewhat by people who've left the company, and it hasn't caught fire at other publishers. I know at least two other publishers, small publishers, not the big guys, basically sent out a statement saying, we want to treat you fairly, and if you have concerns and complaints, we certainly will, but we're not going to entertain a union, period. And this isn't the way to go about it. And I know at least one company has entered into pretty decent, conversations with its workers saying, what are your concerns? Let's address them, but let's do so, professionally, privately. And that seems to be working. Where does all of it sit? Well, the odds of there being a comic book union are as close to zero as it sits. As I mentioned in the video before, and by the way, when I say that, I know last time when I did these videos, people came in saying, well, don't you think there should be a union? What I think there should or shouldn't be really isn't the question here. The question is, do I think it's possible? Do I think it will actually happen? And that answer is no. And the biggest reason being, you've got a bunch of independent contractors here. Now, it's certainly possible for independent contractors to unionize and get some kind of guild going. That's happened in the past, some kind of organization that's going to support, looking out for them. It is possible. However, there's, again, a couple barriers for this happening in comics. Number one being, it's going to cost money somewhere, meaning the members, the people who actually join the union or the guild or the association, are going to have to pay money. A lot of comic creators do not have spare change laying around to do this. Now, maybe we're about to see a bunch of GoFundMes for comic creators who want, people to support them joining a guild or a union. That's possible, but that's going to be a big barrier. Again, just being honest. The second big barrier is that Warner Media and Disney will not allow it. They will not work with people. They will crush it. You can try it. You can certainly try, but they are absolutely going to avoid this at all costs. Not because they particularly care about comics, but because they do not want this to be the camel nose in the tent or the foot in the door of this whole thing spreading into bigger, FTE representation in some of their business units. Disney is at times openly hostile to kind of creative guilds and other unions that they have to deal with already. They're certainly not going to welcome in more. That's going to be another problem. Now, all that said, here comes this disclaimer. If you are pro-union and you're already typing your comment out of like, why does Perch hate unions? Let me say this. Clearly, there are some issues within comics that need to be addressed somehow, some way. Now, the list of demands, a list of kind of union goals was interesting in that there were a handful on there that were absolutely reasonable. Absolutely. You could look at those and go, yeah, I totally agree. That is something that should be in an employment agreement. Totally agree. And then there were weird ones in there that guaranteed its failure. And that's why my first assumption when I saw the Image Union form and the list was that, it was going to fail. Because the key one that a lot of people have talked about and they keep going with, although I've seen very few channels hit on the real issue with it, is that we're going to form a committee that's going to approve or disapprove books that get done at Image. The challenge with that is kind of, number one, that goes 180 degrees against what Image was founded to do. Image was, built to avoid editorial interference, and this was basically saying that a bunch of staff workers, some of whom were in positions that had nothing to do with, approving content or being involved in the content selection in any way, it basically said that these people were going to set up, they were going to be a council of people to approve or disapprove content. That goes against the company. It goes against the mandate. It goes against what the people do. It goes against all kinds of contracts are already in play. Image doesn't have a pile of cash sitting around to just defend itself against litigation that would naturally follow if somebody's contract got blocked. Image is trying to set themselves up as publishing, content for people who are doing things on Substack or things that are done on Netflix. I mean, the entire Mark Miller Netflix deal. I mean, Miller World would be gone from Image extremely quickly if that went through, because it would conflict with a bunch of agreements. Even if Miller sat there and, for all I know, he does, even if he sat there and completely approved of what the union was after, it would still conflict with the agreement that's been signed with Netflix and what he's done. It would cause a huge problem. Same thing with Reminder. Same thing with a lot of people over at Image. That was a non-starter. And either, my assumption was people knew that, and that's why I thought it was a stunt. Having then, sat down and actually talked to one of the Image people, and for the record, I'm saying this publicly out on a video, it'd be great if you went on the air and we had a good discussion about it. You've seen my other interviews. I am going to treat you fair. So let's just go public and talk about it. I promise I won't make you sound like an idiot. Well, I mean, you can do that yourself, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to edit you to make you sound that way. But it became clear that the people hadn't thought that part through, which is a little baffling, that the people who work at a company would have less understanding of kind of the contracts and the relationships as, say, the rest of the world. Because a lot of these details, I mean, Bleeding Cool has printed some of them, for God's sake. It's out there. That's something you have to consider when doing this. But overall, the other, so to this specific thing, did Jim Valentino specifically remove names from a book as a retaliation for the foundation of the union? I don't know. I mean, if basically everyone was credited but the people who pledged support to the union, then yeah, I mean, clearly he removed it. Does he have the right to do so? Yeah, he does have the right to do that. As you said, it may be fully his right, as Sasha points out, but still think it's cruel. I don't think it's cruel. I think maybe it's petty. Here's the thing: if those people are employees at Image and doing a job, meaning they're working, and their name was removed from the credits purely because of their pledge to the union, but they still were doing the job, then yeah, I think that's petty. I think that's a dick move, because it in that case, it really has. I know some of you are definitely going to disagree with this in the comments, but they still did the job they were paid for. The union is a sideshow, and frankly, an increasingly stupid one that is going nowhere. But if they still did the job, they still deserve to be credited. That would be my take on it. I think retaliation to say, well, you signed up for this union, you still did the work, but now we're going to erase you in the credits. I mean, that just seems dumb. To me, that seems dumb. Now, maybe this is what I say. Maybe there should be some more digging into that. We're taking too much of this story at face value. Maybe the lawyers at Image said, hey, you better get these people out of here, because you can't have them showing up on the credits, because that's going to conflict with whatever's they're trying to do with the union, your ability to negotiate. I don't know. I would hope, for Jim Valentino and Image's sake, that they, their lawyer gave them that advice. And whether that's good advice or bad advice, I would hope they got it from there and not, from the, just as a decision, like, screw these people. I mean, again, it's his right to do it. It just, if this ever does turn into a legal issue at some point, these kinds of moves are ones that, petty moves are dumb moves. In most cases, petty moves are ones that feel good at the time, but then cost you more down the road. And it's just, again, even if you feel completely justified in doing it, even if you're angry and it's your right to do it, never make a decision in the heat of the moment that's going to then cause you to have to relive and deal with that decision down the road. That's like, but they removed it from one book, from Hellcop. Another part of me goes, who cares? And that's not a knock against Hellcop, but Hellcop is not selling hundreds of thousands of copies. I mean, it's a fine book. I think it's great. Actually, I enjoy that book. If the names were removed from only one title, Hellcop, then this starts to, then it starts to get weirder on a bunch of different fronts. Again, it still looks petty, but also who cares? Are the image union, folks credited in the other books? If they are, does this matter? I mean, it matters, I guess, a little bit, but I, I struggle to think that, I don't know, this becomes much ado about nothing. But in many ways, it fits the entire storyline here that's gone on. Because what we see is that, you know, I think there needs to be some improvements and changes in comics. For all you people out there right now who's like, Perch is just comics gate. He's evil, bad, mean person. I hate that guy. Well, first of all, you're an idiot. But second, you're not listening. Because I really do want better conditions. I want better things for you. I think a healthier, stronger comic industry gives everybody what they want. Creators, fans, customers, retailers, everyone. If people are better protected, it's going to be better for everyone. One of the advantages, and I'm not particularly a pro-union guy. I think there's a major, whenever you talk about the union with somebody and you run into a big pro-union person, they often refer to things that happened 50, 60 years ago. And, 50, 60 years ago, I think the union did a lot of good. I think there were some things that needed to be addressed, and the union helped in a major way. I think in 2022, the value of the union has to be rethought a little bit. Is it still providing the same value? You can make that argument, but I think when you bring up things that happened like 80, 100 years ago, I mean, it's a whole different world at this point. But I'm not particularly pro-union because I think that problems can be solved in a bunch of different ways. And I think we no longer, in many cases, forming a union may have the opposite effect that people want. It may take more money out of people's pockets. It may make things more restrictive. It may make companies pull back on hiring because they're trying to be more careful. So it may have a lot of unintended consequences. But I do think there needs to be some improvements to comics, bar none. The thing that frustrates me, and I'm more frustrated than laughing out loud about this thing, although there is part of me that definitely sits there, is because the way that this entire thing went about was dumb. Again, not to be a broken record, but when your first shot across the bow is Twitter, you fucked up. That's a horrible, dumb way. All that did was entrench everyone into a no-win situation. When I look at that list that they were asking for, several items on there were worthwhile. And if the people banded together and said, hey, as a collective, as a group of 12 of us, or whatever it happened to be, we think these 4 things really need to change. It needs, and we really want to talk to you about, changing these things, modifying these things. I think they would have had more success. I even think if they would have tried that route and maybe the image people said, hey, screw off, don't care, and they then went to take their case to the public forums, I think they also would have had more success. But announcing via Twitter, we've started a union, when the union wasn't accepted, wasn't acknowledged, was basically dismissed from the very beginning, and they included things in their list of demands that were absolutely untenable from the very start. That blew it all up. It was dumb to tie your goals of making a better, healthier workplace to things like, we want to have a committee that's going to determine if toxic masculinity is existing inside concepts of the books we're publishing and reject them. That sounds like a wet dream of a bunch of people, but again, that's not your choice. I don't know how many times that this has to be said. Look, if you want to gatekeep certain people out of things you publish, your first step is you're going to have to start a publishing company. You can't go to work for some other company and start to say, well, from the inside now we're going to kick a bunch of people out. It's very unlikely you're going to be successful. It's the dumbest possible way to do it, and it's not your company. Sorry. You don't get to be a low-level worker and say, I want to dictate the kind of people I like or don't like inside this group. You don't get to say, hey, we almost published something by Warren Ellis, and I'm upset at Warren Ellis, so I want the ability as a junior marketing staffer to say I refuse to publish Warren Ellis books. That's not your right. Sorry. And if you want to work in a company where that is your right, go found your own company. I, sorry. I, Again, I don't mean to be a dick about it. It's like, that's your choice. It's why you tangle that all up in with a bunch of things that legitimately might have helped people in comics. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm just kind of pissed at you because you sacrificed, you gave away the ability to actually do some meaningful good by inserting a bunch of bullshit in there that was never going to fly. And I'm sure that got lots of cheers and applause from people on Twitter who get super horny every single time you bring up the idea of blocking some people out. But look, I'll say it as directly as possible. Image Comics is not going to be publishing the Jawbreakers Omnibus anytime soon by Richard Meyer. Okay? They're not going to do it. So stop worrying about that and start worrying more about getting paid for the work you do. Okay? That should be your goal. And even if Image was to do that at some point in the future, which they are not, nobody's going for that. Either Richard's not going for it, nor Image is going for it. So it's not happening. Don't buy it. What's the phrase? I mean, Kelly Sue said it best. If you don't like my politics, don't buy my books. Don't buy it. Problem solved. If you find that the company you're working with is publishing a bunch of stuff that seems hateful to you, go to your manager and say, I refuse to work on this stuff. It's hateful. Here's my list of reasons. By the way, most companies will say, all right, we'll get somebody else to do it. I don't want to make you uncomfortable. Because most companies are afraid of a lawsuit if they force you to do something uncomfortable. And if you have any value to the company, they're going to want to keep you. So in 9 times out of 10, they will say, you don't have to do this if you don't want. Honestly. They're not going to turn around and go, you're fired if you don't do every single thing I say. It's too much hassle for them. So that's the best route you have. Stick to actually doing things that are going to help the industry, not dumb fantasies that of giving yourself more power for things that really don't matter. Anyway, sorry for the longer video. We'll see what the next move is. I'm guessing nothing, but we'll see. Thanks for listening.